Welcome to our last session today by Javiera Laso Octavio Valenzuela, Journey to Implement DDD into an Organization. Please welcome the speakers.
Hello, everyone. Let's look at this quote. It says, if the desired theoretical system architecture does not fit the organizational model, then one of the two need to change. How many of you have developed microservices? How many of you have encountered that the high-level management thinks that microservices are the journey to modernization? That's a lot. So today, we are going to talk about the journey to implement DDD into an organization in our words as consultants. My name is Javiera Laso. I'm a software developer and a biotechnology engineer, a DDD enthusiast.
I'm Octavio Valenzuela. I'm principal consultant at ThoughtWorks. I'm a DevOps advocate, a foodie, and an adrenaline lover. Okay, let's start with here. This is our starter kit for implement DDD. I believe most of us know this starter kit. It contains process, tools, and many things we use to implement DDD. One of the most important things about this is in an evolutionary and iterative process we use all the time to always increase the knowledge and create the model of our problems or what we want to solve. So, besides know this is cool, this toolkit, we want to understand, and please have it the next slide. We are going to talk about what is the path of an organization, or what is the journey they follow to implement DDD, not only using the tools. This is the most tactical part of the problem. And first of all, we need to recognize this is an organizational problem. So, to talk about this journey, we split the journey in 4 phases. Meanwhile, we are talking about how we are going to organize all the information. First of all, we have context, design, rollout, and then we are going to talk about the future of the teams.
So these 4 verticals have different steps in the journey. We highlight here just a few, for example, at the start when we are choosing a company, then about the technology strategy. When we design, we are going to talk about a little bit about upskilling. Then when we roll out, about team slice, adopting DDD, and for the future, like the evolution of the teams. This is how the talk is going to be structured. For the first part, we know there are many different organizations, and we try to put them in 3 small boxes. The first one is when a company is with a non-modular monolith, is a big ball of mud, a lot of legacy. Really, the business does not talk with the developers. They don't care. It's just the part that makes money. The second organizations is where there are already some microservices. They're starting to go modular. There's a high coupling of responsibilities, but also there are communities. Now we see devs community, XDs, agile community inside the organization, and the business is close to some strategic areas. And the third one is the limited responsibilities by the domain. It's we want to be that. The business units provide value and capabilities. There are cross-cutting communities. They are talking a lot. They're trying to evolve. And the business responds very quickly to change. For the purpose of this talk and as consultants, we usually see the 2 first, because the third one already did an assessment with us, probably. But the first 2 are going to that journey.
So let's start with the first part, context. And what we refer about context, please help me with this. We need to understand a lot of context from the organization we start to work. First of all, tech strategy. This is a consistent plan that needs to help the organization or the business to get the goals they want. They need to be in synchrony all the time. And it's composed of a lot of components or a lot of parts. Can you raise your hand who know the vision and mission of your tech strategy? Not so many. Or the roadmap of the technology. that guide the decision we need to make. If you want to run autonomy with the teams, or we want to help them to take decision about the technology, we need to guide them. We need to transpass this vision and mission. The roadmap needs to be transparent to everyone in the organization. Who are guiding the technology, how we are fostering the innovation, how we are going to help the business to accomplish its goals. The tech strategy needs to be in constant evolution and always aligned with the business. These are some of the components we always see, or we always try to find about what is the strategy of the company.
But what about communication plan? Is that important?
Yeah. The communication plan, I believe, is one of the most important parts of this kind of component, because without the communication plan, how we know the roadmap, how do you know the evolution, how do you know which are the new technologies we need to adopt or we want to be adopted in the company. These are some tools we use to understand which is the technology strategy in the company. Interviews, this is what my favorite part when you go to talk with the people. One of the most important things is not only talk with the management team, we need to talk with different parts of the organization and different levels to understand how the strategy is being understood. Many, many times, we see the strategy as a beautiful deck, a beautiful PPT that nobody knows, nobody understands, and when you want to talk with the developers, you don't confront to the reality. They don't know the strategy, they don't know the technology, they don't know the roadmap, they don't know the vision, and you start to understand there is a break point, or there is a break in the communication line, and nobody understands the strategy most of the time. We need to understand we are stakeholders who are promote this initiative, who are the important ones we need to, on our side, to implement DDD. And worthy mapping, this is a high-level technique that allows us to understand which components on the high level are related and help us to create value in the company.
So then it's the impact of the company structure. Because when we are designing and getting context at the beginning, we need to understand what is this impact. We can see the Conway's law, that it says organizations who design systems are constrained to produce designs which are copies of the communication structures of these organizations. When we're initiating this journey, we need to understand what is happening, how the silos are working. Do we have any silos? What kind? Do we have database teams? Do we have front-end teams? How is the structure is going to be impact after this journey? When you have a little bit of experience, you can have a little bit of a vision that how might we impact this to the organization. So it's very important to understand what is the state right now in order to create different changes. And for this, we also have different the governance. For example, how we know that the company is not in the best place. Because it's not really a wrong place. It could be always better. So when we see this kind of things like lack of alignment with the business, inconsistent practices, for example, we have a team that is doing, for example, trunk-based development, the other one is not. We really don't have sensible defaults, and maybe the business says, oh, use the programming language that you wanted. For example, let's use Clojure, Elixir, doesn't matter. So resource misallocation, vendor and supply issues are the most common that we see when we assess some companies, because it's very hard to manage people that are from different vendors because they have different cultures. And even when we want to, each vendor wants to push their own culture, they also have to mix up with the culture of the company. So the impact is very hard. We can have quality and security risk, and most important, in my opinion, for now, is loss of competitive advantage. If we are in a modernization journey or we want to change what is going on, this is going to be very relevant. Are we losing money? Can we lose less money? Can we make money with this modernization?
Here we have a real-world example. This was an old project we work. And this, you have in these different boxes, each one of them is a team inside of this organization. As you can see, and this is one, at least to me, take a lot of attention, they have a team of error correction. They have a team of technical support. They have a team of technical debt reduction. This is a big, big smell of me. This not going well. really not well. Most of the efforts on the company are going to fix problems of the technical dev of his own software. They're not creating really value with the software. They only support the problems that his own developers create. This is a small team of software development, and most of the effort of the company is to operate and support the operation of the business. They're not thinking on IT on a strategic level, and this only support and correct errors on the operation level. That's why it takes me a lot of attention. Why have a tech debt reduction? Is it really necessary? But knowing the structure of the organization is going to give us some smells of how is working everything on the company. And in this case, nothing is running really well. We need to take all that software that is from this kind of organization, it was a big ball of mud, and take it to the trash and redo almost everything from zero.
So what happened?
At the beginning, for real, this was a really mess. We don't understand anything. They don't give us really many information. They have a lot of, I don't know how to say it, hidden policies about how the software is running, because they're always fixing something in database. They're always fixing something in behind, and nobody knows. And the only way we kind of fix this situation, it was execute an event storming. This is the only way, and bring all these peoples to an event storming session to understand how really run the business. Because all these hidden responsibilities inside this team hide all the policies and the knowledge we need to absorb and understand to change and modernize the business and create a new software that be more efficient for the business. Now, it's really important we understand how is the technology health. In the last case, we have a mess. But you really understand, it's really always the company running for the next incident. They really have a healthy shape of the technology to support a change like implement DDD. It's really important to acknowledge that not always is possible. It's the things that are not running well, we need to change previously, most probably in the tech strategy, and we need to understand how it is running the thing. We are going to be able to support a constant change environment. We are going to support that piece of change. This is an iterative journey. We're always going to change the context, the limited and both the contexts are going to grow all the time. And the team needs support on the technology to do that kind of things. So we have some tools that help us to understand how are they running the things. We can calculate this tech dev index to understand how big is the tech dev. We have someone smell also. If the team told you, we don't have technical dev, this is a smell that everything is not running good. When you don't have technical dev, most probably the team is never getting to the dates. They're always late delivering because they're looking always the super perfection of the software. And on the other side, if you have too much the technical dev, they're running always in error. There's always a problem. That's why we have to need to a support team and an operation team to always kind of fix everything because we have a too big technical dev. The technical dev need to be managed, not doesn't exist or exists in totally always with technical dev. And we need to create that balance that allow us to run at the velocity that need the business, not in other way. And also it's really important to help us to understand the big picture of how the technology working in the company is do a complete architecture assessment. These are different kind of tools that are going to allow us to get our context about how the architecture is running over the business.
Again, while gaining context, we need to understand what is the path to production. Knowing this, the software development life cycle from the beginning to the end is going to help us to understand where's the time being wasted, maybe. For example, this is a real example that is very interesting because, for example, when we have a need, when we have a request, it might take a week for this specific project. Then we have requirements. There is going to take 1 or 2 days to do the analysis, break up the stories, do some epics and stuff like that. Development is relative. It's going to take maybe half of a sprint, hopefully less. It depends on the team. Then the QA, it might take 2 days, it might take a week. And this case was almost 180 hours, which is a lot. When you go to the deployment part, the deployment takes 30 minutes, which is not bad if you look the whole process, but still, putting this on a mural is going to help you to take decisions, to understand what is going to happen if we move anything from this path to production. The requirements are taking too much, but what happens if we delete the requirement side? So it's going to go straight from the discussions to the development? Is happening that? What happens if that happens? It's going to take maybe more, maybe less. How is the path to production? It's going to help us to gain a lot of context while we're doing this. Also, we need to understand how open the company, the C-levels are to change. This is a very important question to ask them, because if they're not open enough, maybe this is going to be a disaster. There's not going to like anything that we said. They just hire us because they wanted to prove they were super right about what they were thinking or what were they doing. And for this, we have different tools. For example, the change style indicator, because it's going to give us the conservative, the pragmatist, or the originator. This is a very interesting tool to assess while you are interviewing your stakeholders, as Octavio said before. And the chain readiness index. We are giving you these tools not to use them all at once. It's like you evaluate which is going to work better for your organization, which is going to be helpful for you when you are assessing this. And what happens if the company is really a conservator? At least they already hire you because they have something that is back in their minds that maybe get better. So you can work with that. So they took the first step. They know they're in the first and second type of the organizations, so something is happening.
Okay, we get some context of the company we are working now. We know a little more of the tech strategy, architecture, how open they are to the change. And now we are start to design or start our modeling process. And the first step is upskilling the people. And this is really important because we need them to actively participate of the modeling process. This is a collaborative process. As consultants, we don't know the business. Really, we are trying to understand the business, the problem, and the problematics we are trying to solve. And we need to create a team and gather all the people with us to modeling this. If we now level the language and not able to participate everyone that's important on this, this is not going to be a really good model. Again, it's a collaborative effort, and we can't do alone this. We need the business expert. We need the side of the business with us modeling this, and we need to upskill these people or enable them to participate active on an event storming session. We need to talk the same language. They need to understand the component of an event storming to be able to be a successful activity. If not, it's really difficult to execute, and most probably it's going to be a waste of effort.
But isn't this upskilling should be the future, or when you release?
We need to, again, make the people work with us from the beginning. We can start modeling or implementing without first a minimal design, understand the problem we want to solve. And that's why it's really important first upskill the people to talk the same language and participate active of the activities we need to model the problem we need to solve. This is really, really important because, again, it's not a single person who is going to solve this. This is not a superhero to try to understand everything. We need to all the people together working and create the model that is going to resolve a problem and create an effective software. They have some tools that help us to upskilling the people. There's not all the tools, but some examples you can use it. Customized workshop and trainings. We can do small DDD session. Javi do this for us in a project we are currently working, and they introduce so many of the concepts. This creates excitement on the people, and they are able to participate in a session of event storming. The digital transformation workshop to understand why we are doing this, why we need to modernize, why are the objectives of the company, why we want to do a so delicate and complicated process because what we are following with this. And identify this business expert, these guys we, in our stakeholder mapping, know these are key people. We need to create mentorship programs or coaching these guys to allow them to participate every time on the sessions and be active, participated, and promote the DDD inside the organization.
After that, or while we were doing that, we need to map our domain experts. Our domain experts could be CTO, could be developers, but also people that works in the business side and they're being there for 30 years. This tool, for example, is a stakeholders matrix. We have a matrix that is talking about power and interest. But I don't know if any of you went to Kenny's session in the morning, but sometimes there is implicit power. Maybe some people that is very interested but have not many power can influence the people with a lot of power because they've been in the company for a long time. Always happen. Not all the people that is been there for a long time has the most power, but maybe some new CTO, maybe they're new stakeholders over there. So mapping these domain experts is going to help us to understand who we need to keep satisfied, manage close. This is very important when you are assessing a company to this modernization journey, because if we do it top down, it's going to be more successful if we try bottom up, which usually fails. So while we design by modeling the business, it's very interesting to understand what is going to work for them, what is going to be helpful for that business in particular. If we are not ready to model what is been happening right now, it's going to be very hard for us to really improve. And for this, we have different techniques. We already talked a little bit about event storming, when we are modeling what is happening, what use cases are happening, what is the common language. Because, for example, when we are assessing an event storming, maybe the expectation is like we model all the business and we go deep into the aggregates. But what happens is we've been there for 4 hours and there's not talking about aggregates yet. But we already know the boundaries. Maybe we know now the language. So we need to understand and evolve with the company, with the business, what they are looking for. They really need to do the aggregates, or they can be fine defining the concepts. The same with domain storytelling is going to focus on stories and how is the flow of events that is happening. There are a lot of different business around, so these tools are going to help us, even to us, to get some context, because even when we are facilitators, we need to prepare ourselves to really go deeper in what is happening in the organization, maybe make some questions that are out of the bounds.
What we try to talk right now, we suppose already execute an event storming, story mapping session. We already have identified some bounded contexts. We already create some ubiquitous language. But one of the first questions that emerge is, we really have the best organization to do this? Most probably, no. That's why we are trying to do this. Most of the common mistake we see on this is, okay, we are going to assign this to a team, giving the more responsibilities, or not trying to understand this is all kind of different way of working. We are going to try to give them a full responsibility of a context. And what is the meaning of this? You help me with the next slide. One of the techniques we use on this is use this inverse Conway maneuver. That is, instead of working on assign this bounded context to the current organization, we design the teams on the new organization based on the architecture we want to have. Conway is really say us what there's a direct connection between the organization and the architecture we want to create. So instead of keep doing the same thing with the same organization, we create a model, and starting from model, we reflect an architecture, and we intentionally create a new organization to make responsible of this new context. So in this way, we are going to try to create the architecture what we want.
So now we are in the rollout. We really want to go and get deeper in what is going on. Now we are ready. We have our context. We have some designs. We've been working with the stakeholders. Now it's action, hands-on action.
So the first thing is who is going to do the work and how is organized this team. We already talked. We are going to create a new team. How is the shape of this team? Here we have a small sample, for example, of a retail. Suppose we want to create a new feature. The idea of a thin slice is to have the full responsibility end-to-end and don't have handovers between different areas. For example, if we want to create a page like this when we have products in a page and we can browse them, these have connection on the different layers of architecture. You have database connection, AP layers, we have the UI, we have the visualization of our application, maybe a mobile application. And most probably, the bounded context we already identify and we have an ubiquitous language of this, have all of these responsibilities in a vertical way crossing all the organization. We need to gather a team with all those capabilities and give them the possibility to be responsible or have full responsibility of the context we are giving them. It's the only way, if we fraction this and create, for example, a QA team that is separate from the team that is in charge of the bounded context, this is going to failure. If we pass to the responsibility, for example, a DBA team, this is going to failure. We need to put all these capabilities in this team to allow to be responsible of this thin slice that discovers vertically all the cross layers of our architecture or organization.
So how we scale knowledge and the culture across the teams? We talked a little bit early on, but for example, with documentation, when we document the DDD principles that we are going to use in our organization, it's gonna make sense. What is our ubiquitous language? How are we gonna document architectural record decisions? What is gonna be our communication plan needs to be documented right here. We also need to have some ongoing training. Why? Because we want to standardize what is happening. We need to understand where were the assessment, okay, these are the needs of the company in this moment. For that, we are going to use mentoring and coaching even inside the organization. We don't need to hire more people, maybe. Maybe we have already the knowledge inside the organization, but having this like a mentor coach is gonna establish a communities of practice. We will have some dojos, we have some codes like Center of Excellence. So with this, we can spread the word inside the organization on what are we taking about this DDD, what tactical patterns are we using, how we're going to migrate maybe, what kind of services are we going to take from this big legacy code? Because as an example, we have previously a monolith written in Perl. I don't know if any of you know Perl, but it was a mess, and we really needed to migrate that. So we decided after long sessions of design, then roll out a strangle-free pattern for a specific piece of code so we can be tested. So it's very important to establish this community of practice because later on, you can use it to change. Now in this nowadays, it's easier because, for example, there are tools that take Perl code into Java code. So, but that wasn't the reality a few years back. Other things are this continuous evaluation and improvement. Because when we have this assessment, it's not like we're going to give you the assessment, here you go, that's it, goodbye. No, you need to keep learning, getting feedback, what is happening. Fostering this learning mindset is very hard, but what happens when you celebrate success and recognition inside the company? These are things that we usually don't think when we are talking about DDD, of tactical partners, or anything, but they're super important while we are trying to modernize our organization.
All these kind of things that Javi talked to us, have mentors, documentate, create communities, all these kind of things look super bottom-up. It's really, really important and it's critical. The management and the higher management of the organization is really active, involved in this kind of process. If not, there is going to be a waste of effort. We are going to create even the illusion in the company that we are going to work different. And really, this makes happy people, because they're going to work in real problems, they're going to bring new technologies, new techniques on how to do the things. We're going to create communities, but if the management is not active involved in all these kind of activities, all these kind of things are going to the trash, for real. Because they're not going to see the value, they're going to try to rush the things, and they're going to say, oh, why you are doing community practice? Why you are losing time on those kind of things? They need to understand the value and need to promote these kind of behaviors and activities to create and scale the knowledge inside the company. If they are involved, really, we are directly to the failure with this kind of implementation. Oops, we don't see the boxes, but this is kind of a loop. After we implement in the first team, or we first POC, or this thin slide team, in some time, we need to adopt DDD in new areas of the company. The first thing is assess what works and what doesn't work. What worked with this team? What is the best practice we develop? We need to document these kind of things to share this knowledge to new teams. We need to train and develop new skills in new developers to try to adopt DDD in new areas. Then we need to create a mentor program to support the transfer of the knowledge of DDD, or create a new culture and new ways to do the things. Then we want to select new areas where we want to adopt DDD. Maybe it's not the most efficient way in all the areas, so maybe we are not solving a problem immediately, it's not creating value. So we need to be careful where we are going to pilot a new team to adopt DDD, to try to select. Create regular knowledge sharing session. We need to share this knowledge. This is not only the business model, this is a new way of working, of thinking and design and implement the software. Always looking for efficiency. And we need to share this knowledge from the people who start the practice to the new people. We need to continuous feedback loops from the developers, what is working and what is not working, and create a centralized repository of knowledge for this. And again, repeat. And this is a loop we are always repeating. We are going to look at a new area, we are going to adopt, we are going to, again, evaluate, see what is the best practice, what is working and what is not working, update this kind of knowledge, and share, and look at new ways, and share, and try to repeat this until we rise or adopt DDD in every part we need to adopt.
One of the tools that work very well for us is the value stream mapping, because it helps us to have a current state mapping, but also how is the domain model integration, what is the future state. We can identify waste and the cross-team collaboration. So this is a real example of a value stream mapping, where we have all the verticals that we could, and we listed up most of the things that we can make, we want to try to improve in the organization. And for example, for code, trunk-based development, no, they really didn't want to prioritize. But refactoring, yeah, it was something there. Structured logging, because they didn't have any logs, so it was important. The test, you see, is all black because it was super important for them to test. They didn't have anything. They even had mutation tests. How many of you have worked with mutation tests before? A few. Okay, you kill mutants. Look for it. But it's not being used nowadays, really. But there is a lot of things happening. We have the deploy. They really didn't want to take anything there. But we do have some monitoring. They think, okay, we need distributed tracing because our systems are not very good, some metrics. So this value stream map helps us to have the current state and the future state. This is kind of the future state in development. And for this, with the previous slide, is implement these sensible defaults. These sensibles are going to be very helpful for developers, but also for the business to ensure certain basic configuration. We can even start doing some starter kits for our company. So we are working in Golang, we have this Golang starter kit. For the front end, we have this TypeScript starter kit that it has the tests, it has the connections for the deploy, so you can ramp up easily in a new feature. It's going to have a few best practices, but having this sensible default list in your page, in your onboarding, is going to be very helpful because it's going to simplify the implementation process at the end of the day. And with that, we will reduce the learning curves because they don't need to worry about every detail. We know there are some small details, for example, package dependency checks or pre-deploy tests and stuff like that. Maybe there is no need to have that story written for the sprint. What happens if it is already in this starter kit as a sensible default? So it's going to improve a little bit the development process.
So how to select a team really is not a straightforward process. It's all about context. And where is the problem we need to solve, or where is the more added value to the company? There's a different kind of strategies. For me, it's really related to the bounded context on how it's related to another areas of the company, or if the problem we want to solve is in the same area. In the first one, horizontal scaling, or bounded context of an initial problem we are trying to solve is really related to the teams on the same area. So it's really natural to think, OK, we're going to expand DDD in the same area. But in other cases, the bounded context we discover with our tools previously mentioned are related to another area. So we are going to try to scale in a vertical way to try to implement DDD in another area and not expand immediately in the same area. There is another kind of problems. For example, in a current program I'm working, it's a regional airline. They have multiple countries. And the problems we are solving are really related more to the countries and where they are implemented than a team inside the only country. So we need to look at specific on how we are going to scale in a geographical level on multiple countries. And another one is, OK, the problem we are going to solve, we need to expand. And we are only worried about to expand on domain-oriented scaling. And we are only going to look who are part of this domain and with what is the context on this domain, and trying to implement the full domain in the whole expression with all the subdomain contained in them. This is a good strategy we use to share the knowledge with the people. Another side, we generate that image with DALI. We take a lot of time for that. But we are trying to express in this is we use the experts inside of a team of, for example, our first team. We take one of two experts and we move to another team. This main idea is to share the knowledge, move the practices, move the new ways to do the work to the new teams with less effort. So these new guys are the champions of the sharing the knowledge of how we are going to do the new things, and the new team to accelerate the adoption of new practices, knowledge, DDD, and everything we need to create value. It's one of the biggest problems we see with this strategy. The people tend to love to the team, and many times the managers stop this kind of rotation, and they don't want it to do it. But we need to allow to them to see the big picture and the benefits we are looking for. We are trying to solve the big problem and not only the problems of a team. And this is a strong message we need to pass many times to the organization. Don't stop the rotation, because we are not going to be able to share the knowledge in the best way possible, and this is going to delay the teams and the adoption of DDD and the end.
So a real world example with pollination and value stream mapping and sensible defaults, we have this program called RED. Not the same name, but similar. What happened here, this company, this big retail company had a huge tech debt. They didn't have any tests. They didn't have any monitoring. They didn't have any pipeline, configure anything. So for the purpose of having sensible defaults, this manager for the technical side put this code red. Any new feature was banned. You cannot deliver any new feature unless you're finished the sensible defaults. What happened? That person quit. Now, engineering's manager needs to start scaling this to the teams. They need to try to push this to the teams. And the teams are maybe trying, but who is resisting most, who you think it is to implement sensible defaults if we're talking about software? POs, the business. It was very resistant because what is the purpose? The business is still running. Why you need to fix the thing that is working? So this program is supposed to take a year. It took 2.5. And after the 2.5, the program was shut down, and they go back to the huge tech dev.
So let's talk about the future. We're already implementing a few teams, DDD, and we need to scale. This is going to evolve. And the first things we need to acknowledge and accept, this is an iterative and evolutionary road. This is not a straightforward or, oh, okay, I already do an event storming, I am already done, this is a finished work. No, we are constantly evolving the context, we are constantly evolving the Vicus language related to this kind of context. We are always repeating these kind of things, and also we need to accept there is a direct connection between our organization and teams and the architecture we want to have. These have limited context and have a limited cognitive load, and we need to manage around this. That's why we need to always take a look on how is the team size, for example. This is really important, and this is a technique spread by the Amazon people that say us, if you have a team that could be fed for 2 pizzas, this is the right size of the team. If you can feed your team with 2 pizzas or more, you need to worry about the size of the team. And this is a direct reflection of the cognitive load of the team. If they have too many people on the team, they're going to have to do many things, or they have many roles, and they're not going to be able to deliver it on time. They're going to have performance problems. They're going to deliver it later. Most probably, we're going to see that kind of effects if the teams grow up too much. If we see some of this effect, we need to start to think how we are going to break the context and how we are going to break the team.
So the evolution of the teams is very bound to the change in business priorities. What happened in the world? How is managing the economy? What is happening? What kind of business do I have? Do I have a retail? Do I have an airline? What is going on? The market change or shift, usually the consumer needs might trigger different approach. They might now need to consume, for example, less meat because that's how the market is moving. Technological advancements are going to help us to evolve the teams. And this time we have generative AI, which is going to help us probably in this manual tasks that are very sometimes boring. For example, writing user stories, so we can have a prompt that is going to decrease that time. And organizational growth or downsizing. What happens when a company has so many layoffs? What happens with those teams? We need to think about that. What happens if it grows too much? How are we going to allocate these new boundaries? Are there new boundaries after a downsizing or a growth of the company? We need to think about what is happening after we release our plan. These plans usually take a few months to create. Our assessments took like 6 months because it's a lot of work, a lot of meetings that we need to try to connect. And the evolution of the teams can be bound to the performance issues because we might be not delivering the best results. And why? Because maybe there is a big load of work happening. We had a lot of layoffs, so this team now needs to come up with solutions for things that they didn't know. The feedback and learning, we already said this, is super important for all the people in the organization. Continuous learning is going to come from different places, and we need to help that for us. The cognitive load concerns, as I say, if the team is overwhelmed, it's going to be very hard for them to push the things that they need to push to production. And finally, this is the most common currently in my current project, is changes in the leadership. Because if a new leader comes in, okay, this new leader says, okay, we need these sensible defaults. Now this new other leader says, oh no, we need to revisit everything. And now this new leader really, they want to shut down every program because nothing of this matters. And this is a real case that happened, 3 leaders, tech leaders for in a year. So very painful for us. And we, for example, we have this example about taking the observability to the next level. After we give this plan, we roll out, we thought about the future, we create this enabler team that was going to help teams in observability. This enabler team had a very hard cognitive load because the developers didn't know what a query was. So you can imagine that is a problem because we are not talking about a group of developers of 5, we're talking about 150, almost 200 developers. So this enabled team needed to teach them, okay, what is a log? What is observability? For devs, it's easier to manage this because, okay, I need to do it. This is like tracing logs, easy. I'll do it. But what happened with the business? How we can manage to tell the business, oh, sorry, but you need to stop your features and now add logs in your product. So the real challenge for this team was convince their stakeholders, who were the business, to implement this part of this feature so they can take decisions at the end of the day.
When we implement DDD, teams are in constant discovery of the domain. And this is something we need to accept. Again, we repeat a lot of time during the talk, this is an evolutionary process, an iterative process. We need to make or give them tools to the team to constant discovery the domain and how this is evolving. This is some examples of tools we can use to do this. Even storming, we already talk a lot about this, and we love it as a tool. Whiteboarding, this is not simply idea of have a whiteboard and do brainstorming. This is to clarify concepts. User story mapping, to create a visual representation of how we add value from the application or how we add value from developers to the final client. And the last one, interview with the stakeholders. We need to constantly know if we are meeting the expectation with them, what they expect of this kind of implementation.
Thank you very much.